Slight spoilers for Shingeki no Kyojin ahead. Watch the other seasons before reading. Attack on Titan has been renowned throughout the years as one of the greatest anime to come out of the 2010s with its massive fan base and incredible hype, and it's easy to see why. It's gory, it's a shonen with a somewhat unique plot, typical shonen main character and a hot side character, and the great animation combined with great sound. However much I hate this series, I always praised it for some great scenes with animation and music that was unmatched by other anime. Season 4 of Attack on Titan lost those two things that made it somewhat enjoyable to watch. Story. 5 out of 10. First of all, the battle between Marley and the Mid-Easter Light Forces here makes no sense and isn't explained further, but we will let it slide since it doesn't really matter. I don't care how important all of this talking is, but I didn't come here to see these people talking about who will be the successor to whatever Titan. It's a snoozer fest, and the few action scenes we get to see are really short and boring. In classic AOT fashion, it shows a viewer some extremely long dialogue and utterly boring conversations between characters that seems somewhat important, but really is just there to make us think the story is deep. Absolute trash. The only reason it's getting hype is because of the fangirls losing their minds and soaking their pants because they saw Zeke smoking a cigarette. The incredibly mediocre story of the show has just gotten worse, turning into some boring trash garbage. Art. 2 out of 10. This is the worst part about the anime. The only reason it gets 2 points is because it is a little more accurate to the manga compared to the previous seasons, but it's still awful. Mappa obviously don't give a shit about the animation and decided to ruin the one thing Attack on Titan had going for it with terrible CGI that is hard to look at. Even during scenes with no action, the characters seem loose and move like an abnormal Titan. The animation quality has dropped lower than my balls did. The armored Titan looks like a big piece of meat covered with wood combined with Iron Man's eyes, and the Beast Titan has a body 10x bigger than its head, looking idiotic. It's like replacing Godzilla's head with Donkey Kong's left nut. As bad as the Titans look, young Reina looks a bit less dumb now, which is a plus. If it's this bad already, how are they planning on making the Warhammer Titan look remotely good? The later parts of the series are going to be hard to animate, and it seems like this series is doomed. Mappa are concentrating on Jujutsu mid-Kaisen, it seems. Attack on Titan fans lying to themselves, trying to tell themselves that the animation is good is like Playboy Carti fans in denial after a whole lot of trash forcing themselves to like it, in denial. Sound. 5 out of 10. What the fuck happened to the banger openings this anime had? Girl no Yumiya was a 10/10ths opening, Sasageo was a banger, and every other opening was decent too. Now instead we have someone just singing gibberish with visuals that looked like a 2020 gender reveal. One thing is for sure, the opening reflects on how absolutely trash this series is. The overall sound in the other scenes is decent, but not as good anymore. Very disappointing. Character. 3 out of 10. What is there to even say about this? Eren went from a cribby to a homeless man trying to sound cool with his wise words, which just turn out to sound cringe considering this is the kid who was screaming non-stop in season 1. Reina is on the verge of killing himself, which is completely his fault. Shouldn't have chosen that path, buddy. And now to the new ones. Gabby is a dumb kid who just gets lucky during battle. Falco is probably even dumber. I just want to protect you, Gabby, that's why I'm ruining your dreams and taking the Titan from you, so my family can be honorary Marleyan and yours can be Devil Eldians. Peak is possibly the most overrated girl in this series. She looks like a zombie and is almost as ugly as her Titan. She hasn't done anything other than trying to look cute. Why is she getting hype? Horny 14-year-old fanboys that have never felt the warmth of a woman. Everyone else is the same. Zeke is the best character in the series, but so far he hasn't done anything than smoke a cigarette. Enjoyment. 3 out of 10. This season is so boring, I'd rather watch paint dry or even try to read the Dragon Ball manga without getting a stroke. Seriously, all this dialogue is just making me hungry. After the episode is over, I feel like I got nothing from it. Nothing new happened, and we move on to reread a chapter of Berserk Peak Fiction. Trash anime. Overall. 3 pity points out of 10. Shinjiki is one of the many overrated shounen anime out there, and I can summarize my review with one sentence. If you became kinda interested in Shinjiki because you have heard it's so much more than just a shounen, don't believe it, because it is exactly that, just another shounen. Now I'm not a fan of shounen, and if you read this review you will find out why. So this anime is not made for me, but just for more diversity in views I will analyze this anime a bit closer. Shinjiki is one of those anime where you can literally see the quality dropping, with the earlier episodes being made nicely, and at the end it has one of the longest pacings I have ever seen. Since the art style isn't in any form detailed and costly, they can't tell me they ran out of money. I assume they just wanted to milk the cash cow to the end and stretch manga material. Like I said before, the start of the show was quite nice. It had a few things which didn't really make any sense, especially the riddles, but it had a nice build up and a good pacing. It seemed to me as if the start also really wanted to surprise the viewers with something unexpected, regardless of how illogical it was. It also didn't do much good in terms of atmosphere. In some cases it even destroys the atmosphere it built up just for surprise reasons. The main characters are also unexplained overpowered. Sure, there are a few stronger, but that alone doesn't justify Levi the dweeb being physically stronger than a well-trained grown-up titan, just because he grew up in the woods, which is BTW contradicted later on. But besides a few negative things to say, the first few episodes maybe, was okay. It had a goal and set motivation from the character side. The main story kinda made sense, more than the rest of the show, and they had some kind of, what the fans claim as tactics in fighting. Later on the terror already begins. Motivations from the character were completely forgotten, and not even mentioned, in order to have a little conflict for the goal of this arc. The reason for the first arc, and what they have achieved, was completely pointless and even contradictory as explained in the later arcs. The following arcs shine with not knowing what to call some things. For the show, a soldier is someone who is physically strong and can endure much pain instead of being stealthy and deadly. The so-called titans are a bunch of unorganized idiots who apparently have a lot of power, which is contradictory in every way and let me question the whole world building of this anime. And we still don't know what a titan is and does. The writers have no idea of how Titan works, which wouldn't be a problem if they hadn't dedicated a whole arc just for Titan killing purposes, which later on is also completely useless. Not to forget, the story is full of convenience, which goes beyond the acceptable amount. Some of the eps are complete filler, since they either are pointless or have nothing to do with the final goal, the motivation of the main protagonist. There is even one arc where the main protagonist is inside a video game and literally the first thing he hears there is that being here is completely pointless, but he doesn't care and goes on anyway, which makes the whole arc pointless and questions the existence of the build up to it. Shinjiki also likes to copy or include everything that was or is popular, it seems. That goes from character design, Robocop. A thing that really bothers me as well is the fact that this show has no scale whatsoever. The abilities and the strength of every character are so completely random and out of order. It even shifts during the whole anime, making character who should be strong considering their rank utterly weak and character who should be weak unnecessary strong. It's like as if one writer wrote the hierarchy of all the characters and their relationship, and then another decided, because how much he liked their appearance, how strong they are. In the last arc the tactics really shine, in terms of sucking. In the last few episodes there is only one fight anyways, so there is not much to talk about, but the tactics there is so utterly idiotic. There is so much bullshit that happened during this arc. There was not one episode where I wasn't facepalming. But all of the above would have been minor points if it wasn't for how boring this whole arc was. The reason I criticize their tactics is only because they spend so much time with talking, and every fan thinks the tactics are so great. 90% of the time they talk about irrelevant stuff, and when it comes to real tactics they are utterly bullshit, convenient or deus ex machina. Characters of this show are not in any terms special. Have you seen either Naruto, One Piece, Bleach? You know the personality of the main character. Add a bunch of extra typical side characters, and you got them all. It's just the typical teenager character who is strong enough to change the world stuff. In Shinjiki they at least didn't go full overpowered with the main character, but considering the age of the protagonist and the enemies he is fighting later on, I would say it's pretty unrealistic. He is a very wish-fulfilling character, and not that much of a role model. I think there is nothing really wrong with this wish-fulfilling kind of anime, but they are really nothing for people older than their demographic, in mind of course. So saying this is more than a shounen is really wrong. Music is also pretty bad. Art style is simple and character design in the whole show is the worst I have ever seen, but that's OFC only my opinion. I found it to be nice to see no CGI, if I remember correctly. So overall, this show is not more than a shounen, and I might add the worst written shonen I have ever seen, but I'm not into that genre, so I only saw a few of them. If you are a person who likes more mature stuff and think there is something behind this anime, otherwise it wouldn't be so popular, don't fall for the trap and stay away from it. At the end you will just regret it. Don't bother watching this garbage and wasting precious time like I did. Attack on Titan is probably one of the most overrated animes of all times, and to be honest, I had high expectations about this series. I have to admit that the scenario and the atmosphere are pretty cool. You can feel the decadence of their humanity, the empowerment of the soldiers when they want to achieve something, the desperate on they have when they fail, and the epicness that the music has is incredible, all along with a great art style. The world is amazing, painstakingly detailed, and it doesn't feel just like a background. Yes, the aesthetic is great, but everything else was disappointing. The characters wobbled between a bad and a mediocre level of quality, their characterization are erratic, or they are directly so flat that it hurts. Mikasa, Levi, Sasha Bros, Erwin Smith, etc. barely have any other personality trait beyond being an emo or an outgoing person, and some of them don't have a proper exploration of their motivations. Despite being relevant characters, we don't have a personal connection with them. The Titans killed their loved ones, okay, but we don't know how good their relationship was, since we just assumed they used to have a good relation with their loved ones for what they've told us. Historia is a weird girl for multiple reasons. First, she claimed to be the humanity's biggest enemy, and then she becomes the queen of the realm she supposedly hated, and she also decided that her life purpose will be to save everyone. Then we have Eren. Jesus Christ, he's the author's spoiled baby. There were so many moments when Eren should have died, but thanks to the magic of the plot armor, he survived. By not mentioning that he's the carrier of a big superpower that makes him so special, you could say that this does not cause anything more than pain to him. But I can't believe that bullshit when the author is constantly saving him so deliberately in such epic ways over and over again. Factor shock is the main characteristic this anime has. We had deaths of characters who we never met in depth, or the best we've got from them was a flashback minutes before they died. Such a way to waste the potential of some interesting characters. The anime stretched the main mystery to the top, either by some diabolus ex machina, such like the moment when Annie Leonhardt got freeze, or the amnesia Eren was carrying. There were so many moments when the great mystery could be solved, and the story decided to delay the big revelation just to make the plot longer. The political issues in the plot was very stupid. I mean, the king was a useless asshole, and no, he wasn't a puppet. He literally was a retard who was sitting on the throne just to feign he was the authority, and no one in the town had suspicions about him. Okay. Anyway, I could spend hours and hours speaking on every single flaw this anime has, but my point is clear. This anime is shit 4 out of 10. I tried giving this anime a chance, I really did. I know many animes take a while to get into things, but 64 episodes in, and I have given up on this shit show completely. In the first season, I had high hopes. We were introduced to many cute waifus early on, such as Mikasa, Sasha, Armin, etc., but they show almost no skin. Fanservice is essential for any anime, but the directors and animators of this show were so arrogant they thought that they didn't even need to include it to be successful. This is a recurring problem, and there are so many missed opportunities in each season, including Gabri wearing a night dress instead of a tight bikini. The only skin we ever see is in season 3 part 2. After the whole Erwin and Armin Fiasco, we end up seeing Armin shirtless, but it turns out she is flat AF. I skipped season 2, so I will just talk about seasons 3 and 4. In the first part of season 3, it is pretty much just talking and no action. The most exciting part was when Armin has her chained up and there is mad sexual tension, but of course, it ends with nothing sexual happening at all. I stopped watching season 3 part 1 right there. In season 3 part 2, people whose names I forgot who are Aaron's friends are suddenly evil and titans. Aaron fights them, and blah blah blah, and suddenly we go to his dad's story, which is completely irrelevant to the plot. I skimmed through the last few episodes and saw no titans fighting, so I just stopped watching. With season 4, I was hopeful because a new studio was taking over and maybe they could improve this heaping pile of dog shit, but my hope was quickly extinguished when I saw Gabriella's attire, as I mentioned earlier. This last episode was straw that broke the camel's back when they did not play the host I wanted at the end when Eren transformed. Right when I finished that episode, I spammed all of Mappa's staff telling them how worthless they were for not playing UC Big Girl. This might just be the worst anime of all time, and that is no exaggeration. It is somehow number 2 on the rankings right now, so I'm gonna make as many accounts as I can and rate this trash a 1. Anyone who enjoys this anime is too easily entertained and must have a very low IQ. The CGI is bad and animation is mediocre. Characters feel lifeless for some reason. The latest episodes skip a lot of panels about Eren's big reveal under the basement from the manga. It was like watching a still life cartoon drawing, but they made him move with some bad Photoshop. Was not even animation. As much as the rabid fan base will spam the 10 score, a lot of people have dropped this anime. I'll give it a 5, because I was disappointed that such a good anime was rushed by a studio, Mappa, known for quickly, or should I say mass producing mediocre anime like Tower of God and God of High School. Not looking forward to the ending, where they will most likely use jarring CGI again. The hype train is bad. The fan base should have stopped complaining about long waiting times, and the manga author should have taken a few years to produce this instead of rushing production for the final season. I suggest reading the manga or not watching this at all. This does not look like animators pouring heart and soul into their animation. People say Mappa is good for being the only studio to accept this project, but any studio can animate AOT if they are willing to compromise on quality, and man did Mappa compromised a lot. PS. There are a lot more anime with better animation this season. It's so jarringly obvious.